Welcome in to the Hoisty Colors podcast, the Bucks on the Pond podcast. It is Sunday night. It's 9 o'clock. We are here, as always, Stephen Igo hosting, Jonathan Wagner on your computer screen. To my right, Scott Lorbatcher on bottom, as always, as he likes to be on this show. We are back here recapping another East Carolina 4-0 week, a perfect week. They have won 8 in a row. They have established now a 2-game lead in the American over UTSA, which lost a series at Rice. We'll talk about the conference race. We'll talk about some unfortunate pitching injuries. And, it seems Jake Hunter may miss some time. We'll get to all that. But Pirates sweep in Memphis. They beat NC State midweek. And we are broadcasting according to StreamYard in full high definition for the first time ever. So if Jonathan Wagner's computer or internet explodes, that is why. Let's go around the horn. Thoughts on the week that was 4-0. We'll start with Scott's. Pirates run the record to 35-8. Your thoughts?
What a lucky baseball team. Absolutely just got bailed out 3 straight days. No, just a great week of baseball. Tuesday night was electric and a lot of fun and set the attendance record at Clark LeClaire. And then this weekend to win without using Root or Shinkman, just a huge credit goes to our bullpen and the effort they put out. And my bold prediction hits. We scored over 40 runs, had over 40 hits, so shout out to me. But sad we couldn't watch them play yesterday. But great job by Seth Rogers on the call, and just a great week of baseball. And keep rolling along. 3 road games left. Our road record now at I believe 13-6 is much better than it was last year. So glad to see that. Pretty proud of our Pirates.
No doubt, really good week. Skull Pirate in the comment section says AI, Elon, high definition bots. Yeah, we should get all the buzzwords out of the way. And we're approaching 140 viewers and over. So share the link, tune in. Also, Skull Pirate wants to know, why does Scott have a beard? ECU beat NC State. Yeah, I did say it was about time to shave your beard again, Scott, but you're not on that train yet.
Let's get to Omaha.
Okay, that's fair. We'll all shave our beard if ECU gets to Omaha.
When we get back from Omaha, because I'm not walking around there with pale face, getting sunburnt on my cheeks for the first time in 20 years.
That's fair. More than fair. Wags, your thoughts on the week that was?
Yeah, I thought it was a big week. Obviously, beating NC State's always nice, given the rivalry between the two teams. And I think it was a week of guys stepping up, especially pitching-wise. Zach Root didn't pitch this weekend. Wyatt Lunsford-Chankman didn't pitch this weekend. That's 2 of your top 4 pitchers, if not 2 of your top 3. So the fact that you still won relatively convincingly this weekend, I think it says a lot about this team. And then losing Jake Hunter today, I think the guys behind him stepped up. Chris Kaler did well. So, yeah, it's a time of the year where, again, you've kind of had to grind things out, and it was nice to see a weekend where you just kind of dominated. And the first 2 games were complete domination. Today was a little bit closer, but I guess ECU's luck ran out a little bit, only being 8-2. But, yeah, it was a good all-around week, and I think they really set the tone for the rest of the season. They went on the road again, and there's, I think, 3 road games left this season. And I think ECU is going to be in the top 5 this week when the rankings come out tomorrow. So for once, usually it seems like when ECU is in a position to make a big jump in the rankings, go into that top 10, that top 5, it feels like they lose that one game. They go 2-1 on a weekend instead of sweeping. This week, they swept. And I think they're going to go into the top 5. And I think they're going to move up in the hosting picture as well. So great week, perfect timing, and a lot to like from this week.
We'll get into the rankings. I still have my reservations about the pollsters having the balls to put East Carolina in the top 5, but we'll talk about that here shortly. If you would have told me at the beginning of the week, especially with NC State, the Pirates would not have Wyatt Lunsford-Chankman nor Zach Root available, 2 of their top 3 arms behind Trey Savage, and they would go 4-0, I would have told you, you're pretty crazy. Yes, the offense has been heating up. Yes, we know the offense heats up historically when the weather gets warmer at ECU, but those guys both eat so many innings, especially Wyatt out of the bullpen. And then to lose Jake Hunter mid-game today when it was, 3-2 and the game was very much hanging in the balance. I think even early today we were like, all right, even if ECU loses this game, to go 3-1 without Wyatt and Root is still pretty solid week. So to pull that off was obviously crucial, and we'll get more into that. We don't really have an official update on any of the pitchers. I do know, Cliff Godwin said Tuesday Wyatt Lunsford Sheikman was unavailable. He did say they could have warmed him up and gone with him, if they really needed to. But it sounds like they don't want to push it, so maybe just a soreness thing. And all my sources indicate with Root it's a soreness thing as well. So hopefully get those guys a week off or two. No midweeks this week. Rest them up for the stretch. And ECU, the other thing, guys, ECU kind of proved we don't even need our horses in this league. Scott, like to go out and outscore Memphis 36-6 when you don't use two of your top arms is pretty impressive.
For sure. And it's not like we went out and, won a bunch of softball games and gave up a ton of runs. It was, we still pitched well enough to where we could win with, 6 or 7 runs, but despite scoring double digits in 2 of the 3 games. And Memphis is a team that is leading this league in home runs. And we went in there and didn't really – I think we gave up 1 today and maybe 1 other one. I don't remember how many exactly we gave up, but didn't give up a ton of home runs. We played well defensively. I actually thought Memphis played much better defensively than they have throughout the rest of the year, at least some of the games I watched. I watched them play Mississippi State, and they kind of kicked the ball around for much of the game. But, defense, speed, timely hitting, a lot of 2-out rallies this weekend. I think we're turning into a team that is scary no matter how many outs there are. And, there's not a lot of teams in the country that can say with 2 outs, we can put up 7 or 8 runs on you in the blink of an eye.
Let's look back at the Tuesday game. Of course, the biggest RPI win of the week, although ECU still stuck at 8, right? And how long has ECU been in the 8 spot in RPI? It feels like 2 weeks.
Feels like
now.
2 weeks, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we were like in kind of like a gap where UNC or Florida State, whoever was previously going into the week was right above us, was pretty far ahead of us, and then Georgia was in 9, but they were really far behind us. So we had kind of found like this little soft spot in the RPI, but now Georgia and UNC have both kind of closed in towards us. So we'll see how that changes next week with no midweek and a home series against a team that's not very highly rated in USF.
Yeah, as the conference continues to not help out ECU at all, which is why these midweek games are important. ECU beats NC State 10-6. The return of Alec Makarevich, who hit a ball that's probably still going, and that 3-homer inning. But hey, ECU got the last laugh, sweeps the season series for the first time since 2009. Last time they won at State as well. And that was a big win. Jacob Starling returning, hitting for the cycle, which was an incredible feat. He said both post-game and on Hoist the Colors, the radio show on Wednesday when he joined us, that he didn't know he needed a double for the cycle, yet he still got one. So we'll start with Wags. We'll kind of recap that game a little bit. Another big win for the Pirates, and again, showing the ability to answer after NC State kind of seemingly grabbed momentum with back-to-back jacks early in the game.
Yeah, I mean, that third inning when State did go back-to-back, you're kind of thinking, oh, man. And then after that, you get the second out, and then a single, a double. You got 2 guys in scoring position too, and you were able to limit the damage. That's what it's all about in those situations. Just find a way to limit the damage. No matter who's on the mound, who's at the plate, you just got to get out of it. And then you find yourself in a down 4-2 at that point, and the offense comes back, and Starling doesn't lead it off, but he hits a homer with 1 out, and then Dixon Williams come through the single, Justin Wilcoxon with a single, Bristol Carter with an RBI single. And to me, I think that game really showed me that I think I knew it already, but as of right now, this lineup doesn't really have a hole. I mean, Joey Barini, I think, cooled off after a hot week last week, but you can make a case at least 8 or 9. There's no easy outs at the very least, and that's something that's really valuable. So, I mean, doing that was huge. And then I alluded to the bullpen earlier, but, Eric Ritchie got the start. Danny Beal came in after that. Neither of them were fantastic, I don't think. Ritchie wasn't bad, but then Ethan Norby. I mean, what more can you say about that kid? True freshman coming in against, probably the best atmosphere he's seen to this point, at home at least. And He comes in, he goes 4 1/3, gives you 63 innings after 63 pitches. That'd be a lot of innings, and that's after throwing a lot of pitches last week too. So he came in, he won the game for you, and he gave up a couple runs. Only one of them was earned, and then Aaron Gola came out and closed it out. So guys stepped up, and it was big. Again, it means a little bit more against NC State, but to me, it was an all-around performance. Even when you didn't get a great start from your pitching staff, guys came up, guys stepped up. You finish it off, and the lineup 1 through 9 was a threat, and it was really nice to see.
Scott, what stood out to you on Tuesday?
Yeah, I think just that kind of what Wags touched on is our pitching and our ability to get guys out. You know, when it was 8-6 going to the bottom of the 7th inning, you know, in past games I would be worried that game could turn into a 14-13, 15-14 type game. And Growler came in and kind of shut State down again, just like he did to start the game in Raleigh. And, you know, we scored 10 runs in that game without having an inning that had more than 2 runs in it. We just continued to apply pressure and pressure and pressure. And when State scored, we scored. You know, when they hit the back-to-back-to-back home runs, we came back and we scored. I think we tied it up. We didn't take the lead, but we tied it up. And that was something last year that I felt we didn't do well. When other teams scored on us, we didn't always respond, and we didn't always score again, even if it's not enough to take the lead. But scoring moves that momentum back to your side. When State had just a ton of momentum, you know, with really 3 of the hardest hit balls I think I've ever seen Danny Bill give up. And then Danny Bill responded this weekend by pitching lights out. So I think this team has just shown a level of resiliency of being able to bounce back from the negative in a way that I don't recall an East Carolina team doing in the past.
No doubt. And it just seemed, we said this before, but it just seems like no matter how big of a deficit as they showed versus Wichita State, getting now 7-0, no deficit is too big. I mean, and they answered that right away, and I think they will continue to show they can do that. So the big story, of course, Jacob Starling returns, hits for the cycle. I think he went 0 for today, but, you know, just his presence, guys back in the lineup brings such a difference. I mean, when he's using the whole field, I think Star is as good as anybody in the lineup. Had a big 3-run shot over the weekend. You know, Wags kind of hit on it. It just lengthened your lineup. You know, I think Colby Wallace is solid, but I think Star is probably a little bit more consistent at this point in his career. So I don't know. And he's a Florida guy. I think he tends to heat up when the weather heats up. So Wags, how cool was it, to see him hit for the cycle? Because it feels like every time those things happen, when a guy gets in the chance to hit for the cycle at ECU, it doesn't come to fruition, but did come to fruition. And then just his impact overall going forward down the stretch with the Pirates.
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, he came in and, like you said, hit for the cycle. And, God, I thought we were going to have a really historic week. You know, I thought Savage was going to go a no-hitter on Friday. And we're going to really start off with a bang. But, I mean, Starling, I said this last week, but I think he has a pure upside. I think he is the highest ceiling offensively on this team. When Jacob Starling's going, I think he's the best hitter in the lineup, and he can do it in multiple ways. He can go the opposite field. He can hit doubles. He can kill you with singles. He can lay down a bunt, or he can take a yard, or he can work the count. He does it all. He really does. And I think he looked better this week than he did the entire season before he got injured. So it's kind of funny how those things work. You know, obviously you hate to lose him, but you know he was able to rest up, get healthy again, and when he came back, I'm sure he was eager to get back. You know, he came back, and he's that cleanup spot too. And I think that's a spot that's kind of been revolving lately. You know, Ryan McChrystal stepped up there for a while. I think he's cooled off a little bit. Dixon Williams has spent some time there, and he's been up and down. He's red hot right now too. But having Starling in the middle of the order, wherever he's hitting, 4, 5, 3, wherever, but right now in the 4-hole, it just makes it so much better because then Dixon Williams can go 5 or Ryan McChrystal can go 5. Will Coxon in the 7-hole. So, man, Starling – he was really good, and I think he looked pretty good defensively for the most part too, outside of a couple plays, and it didn't look like he missed a beat. So it was huge, and this team's a lot better with Jacob Starling in the lineup. And again, we want to see Dixon Williams play, and he's going to. We want to see Colby Wallace play, and he'll get his chances. But Starling, it brings his team to another level, and I think we saw that.
Scott, you had the prediction that Star would hit for 400. Still got a ways to go, but at least I think he looked like a 400 hitter this week.
I would agree, and I think that we should only count from his return forward in the 400 prediction. But I do want to give a shout out to Colby Wallace here because I think his ability to come in and play well allowed Starling to get all the way healthy and not have to rush back. And I don't think that should be overshadowed, by how well Star's playing. All the credits to Star for doing what he's done. But he's a right-handed bat that is just turns it on when the lights turn on. I think anytime there's a big game in Greenville at night, Starling is going to have a moment. If you look back to that game 2 against Texas in 22 when he hit that home run to tie it back up in the top of the ninth, which, home team hitting in the top of the ninth, I won't get into that too much. But, I mean, that was just one of the coolest moments I remember having inside of Clark-Wilcox Stadium. And I think getting Starling back and healthy is like when a team makes a huge move at the trade deadline. And you can't put a price tag on how valuable it is to have another huge bat in the center of your lineup, especially a right-handed bat on this left-handed heavy team. And going forward, I think ECU looks like an offensive power in a way that we haven't looked the first 40 games of the season. And I think we could be very scared of some pitching staffs in the next few weeks and when the postseason play rolls around.
All right, a lot of comments rolling in, and again, continue to drop those. We'll get to them, let them guide. We'll talk a little bit about the Memphis series, get into some specifics there. All right, we'll run through some of these comments. What's in the Red Cup? ECU Power Nation wants to ask water. Sorry to be boring and generic, but we just have a lot of Red Cups from Sam's, and I would love to say there were some alcoholic beverages in there, but not right now as I have to go to bed and wake up early. What are y'all drinking on this evening?
We've also got water.
I also have water.
All right. Keeping it clean. And this is not Hoist the Colors After Dark. Sorry, guys. Maybe one day.
Sup Dogs or Crush Vodka would like to sponsor a segment, we could change that anytime they wanted. Team Boneyard Vodka time coming at you.
Team Boneyard Vodka time.
Oh, man.
Team Boneyard Vodka time.
I love it. Johnny Robertson, stat guy, says the Pirates had double-digit runs in 5 consecutive games for the first time since 2009, also the same year they swept NC State and won a regional. They currently have 6 consecutive games with multiple home runs for the first time in the Cliff Godwin era. Great stats. Johnny, they hit 4 homers today. Double Dylan and Danny Bill, Johnny adds, has 5 career appearances against Memphis and now has 4 wins, 0 losses, and a 0.65 ERA. And 11.1 career innings against USF, which is ECU's next opponent. Danny Bill has 1 win, 0 losses, and a 0.00 ERA. So, Danny Bill time. I made the comment Danny Bill pitches better when the weather warms up. Can we just delete Tuesday's game and roll with that theory? I don't know. But it was good to see him bounce back, guys. And we'll get into the pitching here a little bit. But Wags, with Jake Hunter presumably going down, and I've heard, not so good initial news following that. Probably going to miss some time, probably some extended time. So Danny Bill's going to have to step up, others as well. But he's got to be in form, and we're going to see a lot of guys step up in the pen.
Yeah, we need Danny Bill to be Danny Bill. That's something we've talked about for a few weeks now, and we've seen glimpses of that this season. I still don't think maybe until his outing this weekend that we've seen that. But, man, I mean, when Danny Bill's on, he's almost borderline unhittable. And we that's what we saw yesterday. So he looked really good. We need it, especially in a week where you don't use your best reliever in Wyatt Lunchel-Chinkman and your clear second best arm. You need someone else you trust out of the bullpen. And I think, not to rag on anybody, but I think you're very limited in that number of guys, especially without Jake Hunter. And so you're gonna need Danny Beal to be at peak form. And whether that's closing out a game in the ninth inning, pitching one inning, or whether that's doing what he did this weekend and giving you some length. I think he's a guy who can do both, but he's a guy now that he needs to do both. And it's not all him. You need guys like Chris Kaler. I think he pitched very well today. And Chris Kaler, I think, is the whole key to replacing Jake Hunter if you have to do that. But I'm sure we'll get into all that stuff later. But Danny specifically, like I said, if just having that one guy you trust in the back is so key. It gives you more flexibility other guys too. You know, you get into a regional, if say you get through the first game and Zach Root gets you to the start and Zach Root and Danny Beal get you to the end, you win a game, Trey Savage goes the next day, and hopefully you win that one. And then maybe you use Shankman, but then that third game, which is so important as we know, if you have another guy in the bullpen that you can just trust to give you length to do anything, it gives you so much more flexibility in our regional town atmosphere. And I know I'm looking way too far ahead right now, but it's big. We need Danny, and Danny, he looked good this weekend, so hopefully more is to come.
All right, let's get into the pitching conversation now because we're getting a bunch of questions about it. So, all right, so again, Wyatt Lunsford, Shankman, Zach Root were unavailable this weekend. I'll ask Cliff when we talk to him tomorrow at 10 a.m. kind of what their status is. We'll see what he gives me. Again, no midweeks this week, but Jake Hunter presumably out for a while after today's injury. So we know you have Trey Savage. Danny Beal, by the way, up to 23 appearances on the season. Wyatt has 20, and Eric Ritchie has 19. Nobody else has that many. Scott, what's your take on, look, I mean, Jake Hunter's probably out for a while. We have seen Growler and Norby step up, but now losing Hunter, I don't think he's like the most unhittable guy, but he eats innings. He's got 40 innings on the year, which let's see where this ranks. That ranks 5th on the team. That's a notable amount of innings. So that's a lot to replace, and I think Chris Kaler is going to have to step up in that role, which he did today. But your thoughts on kind of the pitching and some legitimate question marks down the stretch with some things happening there.
Yeah, I think this week was actually huge for our staff, getting Shankman and Root some time off. And then Growler and Kaler both pitching really well. Maybe they can both combine, because you don't always have to have one guy step up and replace somebody. Sometimes it's more than one guy. And it could be that Hunter's replacement is a combination of Ritchie to lefties, Growler and Kaler to kind of in situations where you need to extend. And I think that's perfectly feasible. There's another guy, Jaden Winter, that I still think that the talent's there. And he hasn't shown it yet, but I mean, there was times where it felt like Norby or Kaler or Growler couldn't get guys out early in this year, and they've turned it around. So I haven't completely lost hope in Jaden Winter, so we'll see what happens going forward. But I think the bullpen as a whole, I think it was 16 innings or 16 and a third with 16 strikeouts and not a ton of runs this week. And that's in a week where you didn't get those extended outings from Root that you might normally get on a Saturday. So I think going forward, this week coming up is huge with no Tuesday game. That allows you to get Norby some rest. He's had to pitch so many times on Tuesday and then again on Sunday. Maybe you move him to more of that Sunday starter role, and I think he can definitely handle that. He's kind of shown his ability to go through the lineup more than once. And then that means somebody else has to step up on midweeks, because while we don't have a midweek this week, we do have 2 next week in Duke and VCU. So somebody and somebody else will have to step up in both of those games.
All right, ECU Pirate Nation says the law firm will be crucial down the stretch. Hopefully this rest is what he needed. Yeah, we'll see how he bounces back. Again, throwing twice in that doubleheader, we haven't seen him since then. So, I mean, we kind of questioned that at the time, throwing the second game with, a 7-run lead or whatever. But, too late now. And look, if the guys are asking for the ball, then, the coaches, probably aren't going to say no, but maybe just need to say, hey, we're not going to throw you today no matter what, which is maybe what they did this week. Duncan Patrick says, I think you have to give Bill the opportunity to get the week off first USF. I mean, that's good in theory. I think he deserves time off, but let's say Shankman and Root are still down, then you're really thin. So a lot of it depends on who's available. Maybe you go into the weekend saying, ideally, we'd like to give Danny, some time off, but it's just a lot. Depends on how it plays out. So, I don't know. I do feel like Kaler throwing well today was big. Somebody says Norby pitches better in relief. I agree with Scott that like he's throwing a lot on Tuesday, and then they're asking him to come back, or Wednesdays, and they're asking him to come back Sunday. So they like him in that swing role, Jonathan. But I feel like too that's asking a lot of a freshman arm.
Yeah, it is. I mean, he threw 63 pitches on Tuesday against State, and 63 pitches across 4 innings too. So that's not easy to do for anybody. That's not easy to do for a Danny Beal, let alone a true freshman who's never thrown this much in his life. So, yeah, I would like to see him settle into one role. If you want to have him as a bullpen guy, maybe the Jay Connor injury changes things. But maybe you have him as a pure bullpen guy. He's going to be a guy who comes in late in games or middle innings to give you length, but that's his role. But I'm not a fan of having him do both and then start on Sunday. I don't think it's fair to him personally, and it worked today, but you found a way to scrape by. But yeah, I think if we're seeing that already, after a couple weeks of doing that, then there's still 3 weeks left in a regular season. You get a 5-game week the following week, not this upcoming week, and then once you get into a conference tournament, you need Ethan Norby fresh. You need that third guy who can give you length. So. Yeah, I would like to see him settle into a role. And I don't know if I'd say he pitches better in relief. I think it's just those first outings are kind of where his arm's rested. And then his starts typically are his second outing of the week where I think he's just a little tired, running into a little bit of fatigue. But he's a true freshman. You kind of expect that. But, yeah, give him a role. Or one role, sit in it.
Leighton says, do you think we see anyone else start in the Sunday role? Both y'all can weigh on this, but I don't really see a lot of options with Hunter out. I mean, you could start Kaler. He's got starting experience, but I mean, outside of that, Winter, his last start didn't go particularly well at William & Mary. So I don't know, Scott. Any thoughts there, or are you fine with? I kind of like the opener deal, just throw whoever.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going to go. I think you could see the Growler opener. Happen more on Sundays than I think we've done it a couple times on midweek. So I think Growler as the opener one time through, and then you go to Norby depending on how much he's pitched. In the other games on the weekend, and then a lot of it depends on what happens on Friday and Saturday, right? I think Clint has shown that he's going to focus on winning the game in front of him over winning the next two. Every single time, because those, if you're up, that one is the one that you have to go ahead and win. And tomorrow you don't know what the situation will be, and you don't know who will have to be used. So I think you'll see guys used as soon as possible in high leverage situations. And then I do agree, though. I do like the opener of Growler, and then let him go one time through. I think he's shown to be really successful in that. And then you piece it together on the back end from there. And the other thing is, on Sundays, who has pitching, right? Especially in this league. And I mean, we actually scored less runs today than we did in the first 2 games, but I think typically you'll see a lot higher scores around the American on Sundays because everybody runs out of pitching at some point.
No doubt. It's I think ECU is just kind of lethargic on Sundays a lot of times too in these series because they're just. It's baseball, man. It's hard to just go out and dominate 3 consecutive days. And you listen to the Memphis coach, how pissed he was after the first 2 games. Eventually the other team's going to have some backbone too. All right, let's get into some of these comments. Case from Maley says, "Can we get some black uniforms, please?" Yeah, what happened to the black unis?
I'm a big fan of the black unis.
I'm missing those.
I love it.
We want all blacks though, like the Campbell.
No.
Black,
God, no.
There's a line and we just crossed it. Absolutely not.
We want black
gray on grays before we can get anything else.
But the thing is, we had black uniforms, and now they're
sitting
gone.
In the clubhouse somewhere.
Well, we had gray ones too when I was in school, but
we had gray ones back in the day. Back in my day.
Did you see the Yankees gray on grays where they were 2 different colors?
Not a surprise.
Hey, the MLB's going to fix that.
Yeah,
they announced it today.
A month.
It's a little late for a multi-billion-dollar organization. John Baker says, is this John David Baker? I thought Igor went to work for Tulane. I think you're getting me confused with Corey Glore, which is an honor.
He
So,
did combine
thank
your
you.
names there. So.
That is true. Oh, yeah, I like that. Corey Galore. Maybe me and Corey are one and the same. Did Tulane or Wichita end up winning that series? Tulane, I think.
I think Tulane did. I could be
They
wrong.
had a
I haven't-
doubleheader today. All right. One of y'all can look that up. JPN 1212. Yeah, Dixon Williams is now over 300, guys. Dixon Williams is, or he was, according to my official stats on ECPirates.com, 299. 4 for 5 today, up to 5 home runs. So, bold prediction of the week was Dixon Williams would homer against NC State. Of course, he homers twice against Memphis. So, and that park, by the way, plays really small. I guess the wind was howling out to the left, but it seemed like every decent fly ball into the left was a bomb. So that played a role. And now I can see why Memphis has so many homers, guys.
Yeah, I mean, that park does play really small, and that's crazy because they have that tall center field wall too. I mean, that ball that JC hit today, if that's a normal sized wall, I mean, think about right now we're talking about, man, that ball left that ballpark probably quicker than any other home run I've seen before. So yeah, it was an interesting ballpark to say the least, but ECU took advantage of it this weekend.
We're at 500 plus viewers, bots, AI, Elon Musk. So let's keep it going. All right, a couple good comments here. Still don't understand the interference call on Bristol Carter today, even if their Igo tried to explain it to me. So we didn't really get a good replay. And Scott Rogers, who was there, said they don't have a replay down the line, which kind of makes it hard to overturn it. Now, the one angle we saw, his foot just before he hit the bag was just inside of the line. But from what I was reading, guys, is if you're in the base runner line, basically all the way till you get to the bag, then you're allowed to step foot in because the bag is in fair territory. So like, how else can you get there? It just was a BS call, I think, or a BS way to get them out of a terrible throw. Did y'all have anything different there from y'all's vantage point, Scott or Wax?
Yeah, I think you have to. One of two things need to happen. Either you have to have the second first base, right, where you can just run through it, because otherwise it's not fair to the runner to have to adjust while running to where he's at. It just doesn't make a lot of sense, like you said. And two, I think you have to evaluate, was the throw affected by the runner? And in this case, it was not. The throw came from the same angle as third base, right? And like, I don't think you would ever see that called on a throw from third base, but because it was the pitcher, it changes the way that I guess the umpires view it. So, I mean, I do agree. I think it was a bad call. I'm not sure how you overturn it based off of the replay that we saw. And it's just a rule that I don't particularly care for. I think it's a little bit unfair to the runner to have them run at an angle that is not towards the base. In theory, you could be adding an extra step there, which, bang, bang, play. It's just a bad rule. And I think without the extra base, which I know some traditionalists hate the idea of the softball base, but I think for player safety, it makes a lot more sense to have that base there, because you do see guys get their feet stepped on at first kind of a lot, ankles roll, stuff like that. So if you're going to allow people to run through the base at first, then just have the second base there.
Wags, do you have any thoughts on this? I know you mentioned something about Davey Martinez is not a fan.
Yeah, the manager of the Washington Nationals is not a fan. Back when Trey Turner was on the Nats, there was like a 2-week stretch, I feel like, where it happened like 3 times, and I think Martinez got ejected each time. Yeah, but I mean, it is what it is. I think it's whatever. It's a rule I'm not a huge fan of, and to me, I think, it's one thing if, say, Bristol Carter lays down that bunt down the first base line, the catcher's playing it, and the catcher's almost standing on the first base line as well, and the throw's going straight up. But to me, it was just a crappy throw. And, I mean, it was more to the third base side, to the pitcher, I believe, if I'm not forgetting. And, yeah, I think it was a bad throw. And Bristol Carter, well, I do think he did take a step inside, it did look like. So I think by the books, it's a correct call. But it's just, I don't think it was a bad call. I think it's a bad rule and something that should be looked at. I don't know how you change it. It is what it is. But I've gotten riled up over this with the Nats before, so I'm going to stop myself before I go too far. But I just think it's a kind of a crappy rule.
Duncan Patrick says, will we go a full regular season without seeing Cliff get tossed? When is the last time that happened? I can't remember, Duncan. I did credit him last week on the show. I thought for sure I was going to jinx him when we interviewed him for not getting tossed last week. And then you guys, Scott, you also, like Cliff may have turned over a new leaf. We're now approaching the point where I tell you, if he doesn't get tossed soon, we may not see it.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you have a no-hitter with like 2 outs in the 8th. There's like 1 out, it's more likely to happen than not. And we're over 2/3 of the way through the season, and he hasn't really even gotten close, I don't think. So, the Wichita series where there were, or was it the Wichita series that had so many like reviews in the first 5 minutes of the game, and then the play at third with AMAC against NC State where they initially get called out, and he has the restraint to just ask for the replay and not to lose it on what was objectively a horrible out call of Starling on that triple. And even today, I think the Bristol that call getting overturned based on the replay. Like I think he just stared at the umpire. He didn't really do a whole lot.
Just stood at the third baseline.
Yeah, I think he maybe 10 years in, the umpires know when he's mad, and he just has to look at him, and that says it all. So, great job by Cliff. I think this is maybe that's why the team is playing so well. It's just all that you take in the bad and turn it into good, and it's just all karma related.
I feel like conference tournament is when it's going to happen.
Yeah, I was going to say
good time to do it. There's always weird crap that happens.
There's like just some terrible.
It's going to be like day 4 when everyone's just worn down and ready to go home, and Cliff's just going to lose it on like a first base umpire.
I was thinking it was going to be like the opening game when Memphis is throwing their like Friday starter against Growler on a Tuesday, because we have to have 8 teams in our conference tournament for some reason. So.
Memphis may not be there at this rate if they keep losing.
That's a good point.
All right, this should be an interesting debate. We could have a whole podcast about this. Off topic, but I think one of us mentioned it earlier. Skull says Stars home run against Texas is the greatest moment in ECU baseball history. Debated. I would say no. It was an awesome moment. 2 stand out to me as better. The Devin Harris game-time home run against South Carolina, and then he walked it off, so ECU won the game. And then the Travis Watkins home run at UVA. It was on the road, but that whole inning was insane. Any thoughts here, Wags? I know your baseball history of ECU is maybe a little bit shorter than Scott and I's, but what do you think about this statement?
Yeah, I think that Travis Watkins homer is just about as far back as my true in-depth knowledge goes as far as witnessing stuff. I remember that one. I think that one is a little better, but if the Super Regional against Texas goes a little differently, then I think it's probably maybe hands down. But I will say that home run is by far the greatest moment I have ever witnessed in person in sports, not just ECU. And I've witnessed some cool moments in sports, but that one takes the cake, and nothing else is really close. So, yeah, that's where I stand.
Wait, before we get Scott's answer, so that's ahead of the Hurricanes comeback. Weren't you there?
Oh, that's true. This week may have changed things.
Recency bias is not a factor for what.
I forgot.
He's like, damn, I forgot that. You did say you blacked out, so.
God, yeah. I mean, that comeback by the Canes was crazy. My dad and I were losing it. I might have to think about that one. I'll let you know at the end.
All right. Well, let's get Scott's answer here. Any thoughts, Scott?
That Devin Harris home run went over my head. So that was awesome. And I think the implications of that South Carolina win to win that super regional win that regional at home and go to a super regional, that was such a big moment for ECU sports. I do agree. The Travis Watkins home run was huge, but it was away, so it kind of does take a little bit of away from me. There's another home run in that Texas series, but now I think it's maybe tarnished a little bit. The AMAC off the glove home run.
That was crazy.
That was pretty sick too. And then I think if Stars home run is in the bottom of the ninth to tie it up and go to extras instead of in the top of the ninth, I think it maybe pushes it up a notch for me. But yeah, ECU baseball history. I mean, I saw Corey Kemp hit a ball across Charles Boulevard. That was that was up there for me too. But yeah, I put Devin Harris at 1. I think being the first regional in the ballpark and winning it, because it's not just the home run, it's the home run and then the double to win it. I think that's really hard to beat without a home run being to win a regional or at least send it into extras. I mean, it wasn't a super regional though. It's close. It's really close.
It's one of those things where it's like, and you could argue a lot of the plays in that Friday night win over Texas or the win, Travis Watkins, did he homer twice in the win at Texas Tech? Maybe it was just one homer, but either way, like Watkins, a lot of people are saying Travis Watkins for the top spot. And then JPN says, I remember the Devin Harris moment. The Devin Harris moment was really cool because, as you mentioned, Scott, that was the first time they had ever hosted a postseason event, outside of the conference tournament, I think, in Clark LeClaire, like an actual NCAA regional. So it was a huge deal, and it was pretty special. They were down 3 when he hit the game-time homer. So it was like, you're about to be done, and you come back and tie it, and then he hits the walk-off the next inning. So it was crazy.
And let's not forget, that South Carolina team was like coming off with back-to-back national championships, right? Yeah. Like, I mean, or was that before?
I think it may have been before because I think Jackie Bradley Jr. was on that team, but Whit Merrifield was the hero, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if he was like an established player. We'll have to look it up. Somebody let us know.
I think we might have been the last team to beat them in the.
I think that was what it was.
2 years. So yeah, I mean, that South Carolina program was really, really good at the time. But yeah, I mean,
no doubt, all great moments either way. All right, Trey Savage. We got a couple comments, and somebody texted me during the game. I can't remember if it was one of y'all that said Trey Savage is the best pitcher in ECU history. I don't know. We'll see how this season finishes, but I mean, at this point, guys, he's trending to be a top 10 pick. Somebody said he was tired, and he threw a no-hitter almost. So I don't know, Wags. What we're seeing with Trey is pretty special.
Yeah, I think it was Scott that texted us and said that he's the best pitcher, and I completely agree. And I don't think he looked tired. I think it was just effortless because Memphis looked that crappy to start the week. And no offense to Memphis, it's just the truth when you're going against a guy like Trey Savage. But we talk about him every week. We're running out of stuff to say. He's an elite arm, and he's not just an elite college arm. He's an elite pitcher, and he's going to be an elite pitcher wherever he goes. Again, I'm hoping he falls the 10th overall in the draft. I think he might go higher at this point with how he's throwing. My Nationals would be very well off if they drafted Trey Savage, but man, he's unreal. And it's what he's doing, being able, like this comment says from ECU Pirate Nation, being able to go the distance on Friday. And he does it week after week, whether it's he's going 6 innings in a 7-run rule game, whether he's going 7-8 innings in a full 9-inning game. He takes so much pressure off your bullpen, and he does it to start the week, which is big because midweeks, as we know, are a grind. And you look, 2 weeks from now, or a week from now, I guess, when we have 2 midweek games and then a 3-game road set at Tulane, that's a tough week. But knowing you have Trey Savage on Friday, I think you're a little more willing to, tax the bullpen a little more on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then you piece together the rest. And especially with Zach Root not, pitching this weekend and not looking like his best the last couple of weeks, just, man, Trey makes up for it with how good he is. And I don't even know what to say about it anymore. He's dominant. It's when I go to Greenville, I try to go for Friday night games so I can watch him pitch in person. And, I mean, it's effortless. He's throwing an easy 96, and he's so good.
Yes, Savage now 9-1 of the season, 1.73 ERA. Should be undefeated, but UTSA was stealing signs or had the signs, whatever it was. 113 strikeouts and 67.2 innings, 21 walks, 148 batting average against. He's just a dog, man. Trey Savage is elite. I think he's a better pitcher than Gavin Williams. Gavin had a better fastball, but I think Trey pitches better from day to day. Seatown Pirate says, was the ballpark radar off? Announcer saying 90-mile-an-hour fastball. Well, he dialed it up to 94 in the 7th, so I think he's fine. And I think he's honestly just bored, Scott. Like, at some point, why empty the tank when these dudes can't touch your splitter, curve, or Cutter, Slutter, whatever the hell he wants to call it.
Yeah, I mean, and then the other thing is, I think going into that game, he had to have a mindset of I need to go out here and pitch at least 7 innings, and without having Root and Shinkman available, because I'm sure the team has a much better idea of who's actually available on weekends than we maybe know as just casual fans. And I think he just had the ability to go out there and cruise through Memphis's lineup, and that's what he did. And I mean, I agree. I think he's just at this point. I think Gavin had one really, really dominant year, but Trey has kind of backed up one with another one. And I remember Gavin kind of being as that kind of erratic bullpen guy for so long until he really made that jump where he was healthy. And that's kind of the other factor as far as best pitcher. I mean, Hoffman was, I think, the highest draft pick as far as pitchers go, and I mean his ERA at ECU was a 4-something because he just was never healthy. So, I mean, I can't think of a pitcher that is a more complete major league ready pitcher to come out of ECU. I mean, Gavin obviously had so much talent and ability for them to develop, but I think Trey is much more ready now to make that jump to like AA or AAA right out of college than any pitcher I remember in the ECU uniform.
Yeah, he is very special. Some people saying Gavin is ahead of them because of the Vandy. Chuck, we're not ignoring you. He's saying I'm ignoring him in the comment section. We're getting to I know you've been commenting a lot about rankings. We're getting to that then. He also says Savage will be in the majors 3 years from now. But in DC. Hopefully it's in Seattle.
Reds have the second pick, so I have 2 overall.
Let's get it done. Let's make him one of the Bucks on the Pond Major League Baseball teams. I don't even remember where I was going now. Oh yeah, some people are saying Gavin is ahead because of the Vandy game, which is fair. But Savage has not had his junior postseason yet to this point. And Skull says Trey hasn't had a Vandy performance like Gavin has had yet. I mean, he's had a Vandy type performance the last few outings. He almost threw a damn no hitter. Not in the postseason.
That Friday night at UNC was pretty special too. Yeah. I mean, he shut down a really, really good lineup for the majority of that game. What did he give up? Like 1 home run to Honeycutt or something like that?
11 Ks, 4 hits, 1 run. It was that run on the double that should have been caught.
Right. Yeah.
And look, I think for me, like, I completely understand if you want to say that, Gavin has that, super regional experience. But to me, it's, I think Trey is probably a better day-to-day pitcher, every outing consistency. So I think he's there for that reason. And when he gets to a postseason, if he gets the opportunity this year, whenever he pitches in a regional, I expect he's going to do what he's doing. And not just because the competition is going to get harder. I don't think it's going to change anything. And if Trey Savage pitches in a super regional, I'm still betting on him to pitch pretty lights out.
No doubt. I mean, he struck out 15 dudes in 6 2/3 innings against Wichita State. And, some people have said he could be more efficient. I just think teams can't hit him, man, because, he's so dominant. Teams cannot put the ball in play. I don't think he's out there trying to strike everybody out. They just can't hit it. And, when they foul the ball off, it's a miracle. All right, let's get into some more of these comments. Trey, obviously, should be in line, you would hope, for a pitcher of the week again. But, the American wants to squeeze you out. I think Carter Cunningham has got to be hitter of the week. 9 for 16 with 3 bombs. If that's not hitter of the week, then somebody did something pretty special. By the way, he's up to 415 now. Dude is just unreal. Just want to make that point. All right, let's get some of these comments here that I missed. I don't want anybody else to leave because we're not mentioning them.
Come back, Chuck.
Brandon Carr. Thanks for a great show, Scott. I can't make out your sweatshirt. Is it cold or are you covering up another lost bet shirt? It is the HV3 Foundation, correct?
It is.
Harold Warren
it is a little chilly in here.
Yeah, you you're cold. You almost have the AC blowing.
70.
Wags, we lost to another chicken today at home, is what he says about your Tar Heels, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and
didn't they lose to Virginia Tech? I guess that is a chicken.
Yeah, they won 2 out of 3.
That's a turkey.
But yeah, the follow up here is what I'm interested in. Coach Forbes, he walked into the stadium today with Chick-fil-A in his hands. I saw a tweet about it, and I'm like, who does he know and how do I meet him? Yeah.
Darren Vaught tweeted out, shout out Darren Vaught, who got Clip Rock fired, right? Wasn't it him? But he tweeted out something about Forbes having Chick-fil-A on the way into the stadium, which I guess the concept of purchasing a sandwich and then bringing it the next day was foreign to Darren Vaught. But yeah, and then I reposted it asking the question that it's a tough look when they have a Bojangles inside the stadium for him to bring another fast chicken sandwich into the stadium. So Bojangles, I think you should take away the Bosch Boj and ship it down to Greenville, because I think we all agree that it is in fact the best Bojangles in North Carolina.
It is very good. The Bojangles I went to today on Arlington, not very good. All right, Kurt Cohn says, I spoke to you at the game the other day. I guess you don't recognize when you get called Igloo. I didn't speak back, apparently. Sorry, Kurt. I'm guessing it was the state game. Just come get my face next time and say Igloo, and I'll respond. I promise. Favorite fast food dessert? Skull Pirate wants to know. I mean, who the hell eats dessert from fast food places? Do y'all?
Frosty.
Chocolate Frosty from Wendy's, yeah.
I might see my wife hates Wendy's. I love Wendy's, but I never go there anymore because she hates it. So I don't eat dessert from fast food places. I just get ice cream from like Cold Stone or something.
Chick-fil-A milkshakes are up there too.
Chick-fil-A cookies are banging. I used to eat too many of those. He also wants to know, do any of us offer autographs in person? No. What about y'all?
I don't know how to spell my name, so.
That's fair.
I was never taught how to write.
I don't know how to spell Jonathan's name.
Yeah, I don't know how to spell anyone's name.
I was never taught how to write in cursive. So mine's just kind of a scribble.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I think I got like a week of it in like third grade or something like that. Then never again. So I just kind of scribble my name and find a way.
Wax, have you ever written a check?
Yeah, again, I just kind of scribble my name across and find a way.
I just didn't know if you hadn't lived long enough to have written a check.
Not very many in my life, but I have written a couple.
Leighton wants to know, will Kobe Wallace ever pitch for us? He did have a really good ERA as senior of high school. I just think this year, I think he will pitch, and I'll let Pinecrest man himself, Jonathan Wagner, comment on this. I think he will pitch down the road, just not this year, because they want him to focus on being a position player. Your thoughts, Wags?
Yeah, I agree. He was pretty lights out on the mound. He had an ERA right at 1, if it wasn't sub 1, ERA last year and 3 years at Pinecrest. So he's got the stuff. And yeah, it's just this year I don't expect it. It's tough for a pitcher to, and I'm sure he's throwing some bullpens behind the scenes to kind of stay ready just in case. But to kind of prepare him to become a weapon out of the bullpen at this point of the year, I think is unlikely. But I mean, that's a guy, if you ever get in a pinch and you're in a conference tournament and you've gone through everyone else in your staff and nobody else is available, then maybe he comes in for a little bit. But yeah, I think down the road, maybe next year he becomes a bullpen piece for us. But I do think he has the potential to be that. And I don't want to put too lofty expectations on him, but that Agnos type of guy who can start a game in the infield and play third base and then come in and close a game out on the mound. So he has that potential. I just don't think we're going to see it this year.
All right, Pirate 247. He asked this question earlier. Hope he didn't leave before I answered it. Implications of the Duke FSU series. So you did a long post. I almost said Wags. Scott on the board about things you were watching and for the weekend, who you were pulling for. What did you write pre-series on this one, and then what did you make of the outcome?
Yeah, I think we wanted Duke to win, even though Duke was ranked ahead of us in the top 25, just because Duke's RPI is in the 20s. And really the knock on FSU so far this year is they don't have a marquee series win, which now they do because they won the first 2 out of 3 against Duke. Duke did beat the crap out of them today. They beat them like 16-2 or something like that. So, short term, it's great for us because I do think we're top 5 in the polls when they come out in the morning. long term, FSU's RPI maybe pushes them ahead now that they have that one series win over a top 10 caliber team. Looking at it, I think our series win versus UNC is better than anything that they have or really have left on their schedule, but they would have the next best 4 series wins after that. And Duke and I believe Louisville and Notre Dame and maybe Georgia Tech or Miami or somebody like that. Kind of like the 60 to 80 RPI type teams, which they play a lot more of than we do. So I think the race for the top 8, and I think really more importantly for us, is getting into that 5-6 range as far as a host. I think that could be really big for us, especially in the next round, the super regional round. Your chances of facing a potential 2 or a 3 instead of another 1 seed, if you're the 5 or 6 seed, is much higher than if you're the 8 or the 7 seed. So I think right now Florida State is slightly ahead of us in that regard, but they do have some difficult stuff left on their schedule, and we'll just have to keep winning and force them to keep winning too.
All right, Glenn Perry wants to know how the roster looks for next season. That's a long question to answer. We're near the end of the show, so we'll save that, Glenn, for an off season or later season. We've talked about it a little bit, but you're going to lose a lot, but there are some pieces you're going to have to add some pieces as well. All right, what's the word on Jake Hunter? Hank Hinton wants to know. What's up, Hank? No official word yet. I expect him to miss a lot of time, just based off initial reaction. But they're obviously going to do some testing and all that stuff. But just based on his reaction, the video, what I've heard, I'd be surprised if he is back anytime soon, but nothing official yet. That is me speculating, talking to some people around the program. We'll ask Cliff Godwin tomorrow at on 94.3 The Game. Skull Pirate says, do we really think the committee would give ECU higher than an 8 seed because of the conference? He says he doesn't see it. And then ECU Pirate Nation says top 5 would be the highest we've ever been. So, yeah, let's discuss the rankings, and we'll do this all as one kind of like, ECU. Y'all think ECU could be top 5. I have my reservations. I'll explain why after y'all give y'all's breakdown. But what do y'all think on ECU and the rankings? We'll start with Scott.
Yeah, I'd have us at 5. I think Clemson will go up 1. I think Kentucky and Duke both fall, not far, but a little bit. Kentucky lost back-to-back series. Duke, I think Duke falls quite a bit, to be honest with you. I think this is kind of, now their RPI is bad. They have a really weak non-conference strength of schedule. I think some of the warts are starting to show for Duke, and I think this would be the first time that we would be the highest ranked team in the state all year, which is kind of crazy considering how high we've been ranked. But I could also see Kentucky only dropping like 1 or 2 spots. That's what happened last week after they lost. I think they just flipped with Tennessee. So whether we're in top 5 or not is probably irrelevant because next week Arkansas goes to Kentucky, and I think they lose that series too. So I think as far as the polls go, I think 5 is obviously the max that we would go up. I don't think Clemson slides just by going 2-2. We all know that we would slide going 2-2, but not Clemson. So, did you ask about that and the national seed thing, or just?
Yeah, you can comment on that too, just because we're approaching an hour, so got some stuff left to do.
Right. So I think the national seed, starting to look at the metrics compared to the years past, and we have a great non-conference strength of schedule. We have a decent strength of schedule because it is still inside the top 40. I think that'll take a hit with Rice at the very end of the year, which is kind of frustrating. But if we can win these last 3 non-conference games against VCU, Duke, and Campbell, then I think our non-conference RPI stays at 1. I don't think we would lose that spot. That's a really big metric for the committee. If we do that, win the league, win the conference tournament, have an RPI inside the top 10, I think we could get that 5 or 6 seed. I don't think it's out of the question. And then the other thing is, if you look at in the past, there's been at least 3 or 4 SEC teams that were kind of locks for top 8 or locks for the top even 5 or 6. And I don't think that's the case. And then you look at the ACC. One of the ACC teams will be a top 5 or 6 seed, I think, unless absolute chaos happens just because the league is so good. But there's not really a second one. Maybe Florida State is mixing in there, but Clemson is starting to look a little bit iffy. And then there's no Big 12 team, right? And that's a huge factor. That is going to be in the top 8 right now. And then as far as the Pac-12, you have Oregon State that I think is looking like that 8 seed at the current moment, just based off of RPI and their series losses. And then speaking of series losses, that's a huge factor. When you start to compare ours, which is UTSA, to some of these other schools, even Kentucky. Kentucky now has 3 series losses. One of them is to Kennesaw State. FSU has 2 series losses. Neither one of them are as bad as UTSA, but they still have more than one, and I think they'll get another one going forward. So I think the top 8 is way more open this year than it's ever been. And I think if we can continue to move up and up in the polls, it would be difficult for the committee to take the 4th or 5th ranked team and slide them all the way down to 8 just because of the league that they're in, especially if we win this league going away, which is what we're starting to kind of do.
Yeah, I mean, I think the tough thing for ECU is the margin for error is always so thin. If they keep winning games, they're going to keep moving up, and it's like if you lose one conference game, it kills you so much in the RPI. Or if you have an off week where you go 3-2 in the 5-game week versus 4-1 or 5-0, do they ding you there? So we'll see. All right, Wags, your take on the top 25, and I'll just say for me, I feel like if they don't keep Kentucky ahead of ECU, they're going to jump Florida State ahead of ECU with the same record, and they'll look at, hey, they have a more high-end series win. Your thoughts there? I think ECU is at 6 this week, but what about you?
Yeah, I could see that. I personally have them at 5, but I think it's 5 or 6 no matter what. They're going to move up at least one spot. But for me, I have A&M, Arkansas, and Tennessee. None of them are moving. They're all staying top 3. I have Clemson moving up a spot to 4. They probably shouldn't, but just because they kind of have to. I think they move up to 4, ECU at 5, Kentucky 6, and Florida State is 7. But really that 5 through 7, I think you can probably arrange it just about any way you want to, and it wouldn't surprise me. But the good thing about the polls this time of the year is they don't really matter all that much. So, looking at the postseason and, I don't know exactly where I'm going to have ECU tomorrow when I do my my field of 64, but I will tweet it when I have it done, probably early afternoon. But yeah, I think, A&M, Arkansas, and Tennessee at this point are probably locked into the top 3 seeds if it continues. Maybe Clemson probably has a chance there, but those 3 are probably into a top 4 no matter what. Even Kentucky, even they have a tough schedule down the stretch, but even if they lose a couple series, right now they're 3 in RPI, 16-5 in the SEC. They're 14-4 quad 1. I still think that's a top 8 seed no matter what, unless they just lose out or lose every series the rest of the way. I think they're going to be a top 8 seed too. And then you kind of have that bunch where I think it's Florida State, North Carolina, and ECU. Then you would think, and it doesn't all come down to the head-to-head, but ECU does have the head-to-head series over North Carolina. And obviously overall resume plays into it. UNC 17-7 in the ACC, that does way more than the American, as much as it sucks. But I would have ECU above North Carolina. I would probably have ECU over Florida State right now, just projecting. I think ECU is going to keep winning, and Florida State and North Carolina both have tougher opponents remaining. So, it is what it is. But at this point, I mean, looking at it, I'd be shocked if ECU is not a top 8 seed. And again, they got to keep winning, and that's the most important thing. And it's kind of a lame thing to keep coming back to. But if you come out and win two out of 3 against South Florida this weekend, then you're probably still safe as a top 8 in my book, but your margin of error is pretty much gone then. And then the last 5-game week coming up, that's a week. Do you go 3-2? How does that look? And it all matters in how it's perceived by the committee, and we don't know that. John Gilbert's on the committee, and I know a lot of people say that'll help. It shouldn't. If the system is done how it should be, I would hope it doesn't matter. Obviously, I hope for ECU's sake that if there is something that can give them a little nudge to get them up there, it's big. But yeah, I think ECU is in a good spot. 6 or 7 right now is where they're going to be for me. And if they can keep winning and maybe Clemson falls or Kentucky does fall out of that top 3 where they probably are right now, then that's big. Like Scott said, getting into that 5 range, that 6 range, it's huge just based on the regional you're likely to be paired up with. It increases your likelihood of being paired with an Indiana State type. No offense to them. Paired with whoever wins the Big 12, who I don't think is all that good, but they're overrated because they win the Big 12. It's so stupid, but it's going to happen. I guarantee it. Or someone, like in Arizona. If Arizona wins the Pac-12, and Arizona might host, one of the other West Coast schools. So, again, probably shouldn't host. Santa Barbara's up there in RPI. Irvine can make a case. I don't know if either of them should host, but if they do, they're probably going to be in that 14 to 16 range, and then that pushes other teams like the Big 12 champion up. I'll take that. So, yeah. In the end, the polls don't really matter at this time of the year. It'd be really cool to see ECU top 5, but all that matters is the postseason, where they end up, and I think they sit in a very good spot.
ECU 35-8, pretty damn good. With closing on 40 wins already, could be there depending on how the next few weeks go after the next 2 weeks. So should be interesting to see how it plays out. And the other, if you're countering ECU, the other thing is, like, you look at the Quad 1 record. The Quad 1 record is actually pretty good. The Quad 2 record is not great. And then ECU's got a ton of wins over Quad 3 and Quad 4 because of just the conference. And the home schedule. If you look at like top 50, top 100, top 150, it's a little different, as in past years. So, and they had the win over North Carolina on the weekend series. Other than that, they don't really have a marquee weekend series win. Now, they do have the sweep over State, over UNCW in the midweek, which could play a big role. Columbia, yeah. You were saying Columbia might end up being our second best, series win.
I believe they're 103 in RPI now, and UTSA is like 96. So I think they are already our second best series win. It's funny you talk about Quad 2. It almost benefits us for UTSA to go into the tank a little bit and fall to Quad 3, just because it would improve our Quad 2 record. And the committee tends to not look past Quads 1 and 2. You hear, this is their Quad 1, this is their Quad 1 and 2 record. But in reality, it's your whole overall record. And right now, I don't remember ever having a season where we're this deep into it with less than 10 losses. So, we're playing really well. We played really well and really consistent all year. We have the longest win streak in the country right now. So win out, and you're guaranteed to have the longest win streak going into the seeding time. So ball's in our hand.
Ball is in our hand. I thought it was balls in our court.
Well,
either way.
It definitely is.
So it's in our hand.
The ball is in our hand on our court. How about that? ECU Pirate Nation said, could this be the best shot we ever had to make it to Nebraska? At this point, I would say to a degree, yeah, but a lot of it still depends on the draw, the matchups, and the health. ECU has got to get Wyatt and Root and have a healthy Trey Savage and be healthy going to the postseason. If all that happens and ECU is a national seed, then I'll say yes, depending on the draw. It's a long way to go, though. All right, let's quickly hit on the American race, as that was the theme of the show, and then we'll do our predictions to get out of here. All right, so UTSA now 2 games back of ECU. They surprisingly lost the series at Rice. ECU sweeps Memphis. Pirates now 14-4. UTSA 12-6 in the league. UTSA does have the head-to-head. UTSA host Wichita State this coming weekend. Then they host South Florida, and then they finish at FAU. ECU host, obviously, USF, and then they go to Tulane, and they host Rice, which has won 3 straight series. ECU, I think, has established itself as the overwhelming favorite here, which is another big notch they need, to be a potential national seed. WAG. So this is, I think we expected ECU to pull away, and they're still not pulling away yet, but they have retaken command with non-conference games left.
Yeah, they definitely have taken command. And, it's one of those things we talk about health and pitching and getting guys right and giving guys a weekend off. And it's an interesting balance this time of the year because, you still want to win as much as you can, and you want to win every game. And we're talking about, getting possibly to a top 5, 6 overall seed in the tournament. And you're going to have to win more games throughout the stretch run here. And win and sweep and not go 2-1 and probably win the conference tournament. But then it becomes a balance. It's, at this point, I think at this point in the season, God, we're safe as a host, as a top 16 host. I think barring like getting swept against Rice or something like that, ECU is going to host like pretty much no matter what happens. So it's an interesting balance, knowing that. Do they become a little extra more cautious with guys like Zach Root and Shankman? And it's just a balance of how much are you willing to risk and, who else can step up. But yeah, it does feel like ECU's pulled ahead, and there doesn't really feel like a scenario in my head where ECU lets that back up with how well they're playing right now. But it all comes down to the field, and they're going to win. But yeah, I feel really good right now. But it is an interesting race. I'd like this weekend to sweep again and really solidify that. And then you can have that discussion again, especially going into a 5-game week. Do we give this guy, player A week off? Do we give player B a week off? Or do we try to limit them altogether? So, yeah, it's in a good spot.
All right, East Carolina will host South Florida. South Florida has taken an absolute tumble in the RPI. They dropped 23 spots this week. They're down to 152 in the RPI after losing a home series to Florida Atlantic. They got swept by Rice. They have lost, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of their last 10. I don't know. I don't. Have y'all watched USF at all this year?
Sparingly.
Early, yeah, sparingly too.
I know they still have the Meek guy, Hunter Meek, I think, is their Friday night guy. He's pretty good. So Friday night between Trey and him should be a barn burner. And they just seem to be kind of a pain in the butt for ECU. I don't know why. So we'll see. All right, predictions on the week ahead. Again, no midweek with exams going on. What do y'all think as far as win total? And then bold prediction. Scott hit his last week with 40 runs, 40 – what else did you call?
There's 40 runs and 40 hits.
Yeah.
I think we went 46 and 61. So
nicely done.
We had 20 hits in one game. So it made it kind of easy to get there.
That was insane. Wags went – what was your
11 different position players would get a start. So I put my fate in Cliff Godwin's hands, and he probably listened to the pod and let me down on purpose. So come on, Cliff.
That's tough. One player short. So no Kobe Wallace in the lineup this week?
No, but that's kind of what I was banking on. Yeah. I saw Cam Clunch, he got the start on Tuesday at DH, and I'm like, man, I'm off to a great start. I'm going to hit this easy. And no, I did not.
And I had Dixon Williams homer against State. He did not, and then he homered twice over the weekend. So I will not take credit for that. I should have been more broad. All right, let's go, Scott. We'll let you start off here.
Yeah, I'll go ECU 3-0 this week. I think we will end the weekend with the longest win streak in the country. Right now we're tied with like 6 different teams. And I'll go 5 different players will hit home runs this weekend. I think they'll all be flying out. Wichita State, USF, I think will give up some long balls. So 5 different players with home runs. And I'm going to write it down after the show so that I don't text you guys and ask you what I said tomorrow morning.
Completely fair. Robert Matthews says, please don't overlook VCU. Well, that is next week.
There's 4 different games before we play VCU, so we will wait to overlook them next week.
It is going to be a tough week. Duke, VCU at Tulane. That could be a crucial week for ECU. All right, Wags, what you got?
Yeah, I'm gonna go 3-0. I don't know why. I have a gut feeling that maybe I should go 2-1, and I see that Jonathan, the other Jonathan, not me, in the chat is saying that there could be some weather impacting this weekend, so that could potentially play into it. But right now, ECU is playing too well to not pick 3-0 for them. So I'm gonna go 3-0, and my bold prediction. I don't know, pitching's been a theme, so I'll go to pitching this week. And I'm going to say Ethan Norby gets a start on Sunday, and he throws 6 innings. Does that qualify as bold enough?
I think that's bold, yeah.
I think it would be the longest outing of his career, right?
All right.
It would have to be up there. I mean, and you're basically banking on the fact that he doesn't get
he's probably going to pitch Friday, first out of the bullpen, yeah.
They'll just send him out there on Tuesday night and just let him throw like 80 pitches off the mound.
All right, I'm gonna go 3-0 as well, which scares the hell out of me. I don't like when we all have undefeated weeks, but I just feel like ECU with a no midweek game, home series, they'll be ready to go.
And in
see-
theory, getting your second, third best pitchers back in the arsenal
Hopefully,
for the weekend. So.
yeah, hopefully so. Bold prediction. I'm stuck here, guys.
We gotta come
I'm
up with something. We need to catch Scott here. Scott's
I know.
running away with it. Feels like.
gonna say Parker Bird gets his 4th plate appearance of the season in the series, and he gets a hit.
Boom.
There you go.
Can't do one without the other. So
This is very true. The second part of my prediction came to me on the fly, just as the first part of mine did.
Yeah, I didn't think you were going there, but you did. I like it.
I was searching, and then it just hit me as I scrolled through the roster and had to make a bold prediction. But hey, I do feel like Parker in his last debut was close, so I think he's going to get one. And USF is going to get run ruled one game, and he's going to get a hit to finish him off. All right, guys. I think that is it. This was a long podcast. I think this is our season-long podcast. We're at 1 hour and 20 minutes. We're approaching that. Appreciate everybody listening. 800 viewers plus currently tuned in.
High def.
High def.
I survived.
Bots.
That's somebody came in. They could see Wags' beautiful complexion.
They could finally see Wags. Skull says take the earphones off. Well, then I couldn't hear anything.
Then my audio would be crappy, so you know.
So how about you show up to a game? Do your job. Be a Pirate fan. All right, we'll see you guys. I'll be back tomorrow with Cliff Goblin and others. This podcast will be back Sunday at 9, correct? Barring any Hurricanes playoff game?
Monday. Sunday I'll have
That's
to work.
right.
So as long as it works for you two, I think Monday next week.
I think that actually works better for me too.
That should work.
Awesome.
So this podcast will be back Monday at 9 o'clock. Pretty sure I'll be able to make that work. If not, it'll just somehow be Wags and Scott, but I should be there. All right. We'll talk to you guys next week. See you then.